I will find him!
In 2013, Warner Brothers released The Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder and produced by Christopher Nolan. Man of Steel was the first Superman film in years after the release of Superman Returns. However, this film was much more compelling, had better action scenes, and amazing world building, from Superman's original design to the strange look of the Kryptonians. Let's take a look at the early development of Man of Steel and see everything that was cut from early production.
Is it a plane? No, just a guy in a pair of tights and a cape.
In Man of Steel, Superman is given a brand new costume that no one had seen before. The production team wanted to reinvent the suit while still staying true to his comic appearance. They did not want the suit to be spandex created by himself or his mother. Instead, they wanted the suit to have ties to Krypton and Superman's lineage.
We had to create a world where that kind of outfit was commonplace and make that feel natural.
The red cape is present because Krypton was a cape culture and it was worn by many of its citizens. The suits were full body and had distinct patterns surrounding it, as most people of Krypton wore similar clothing. In fact, the patterns on the suit were meant to resemble medieval chainmail. Finally, the most important aspect of Kryptonian attire was the crest on the chest. When they were designing the S symbol for Superman, they felt that it was a problem that somehow an alien from another world somehow had an S on his chest.
Well, we had this sort of meta problem with Superman, which is that he is from a distant planet, but he has a giant S on his chest. So how do you resolve the fact that this S is Kryptonian?
Due to this, the production team thought up ways to reasonably explain the symbol. The S was actually a special insignia that ties to the House of El. It was a family crest or symbol, as we can see it on Jor-El and Lara. In fact, there were other symbols within Krypton which represented different factions and families. The production team went above and beyond and developed and created a completely new original language. At first glance, the language seems to consist of many lines and drawings. However, just like Chinese characters, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and Japanese kanji, each line, every drawing, represents a saying or a word. So each family crest or a faction symbol has some kind of meaning. The S symbol, for example, stands for hope. When designing the crest, the production team looked at many Superman logos over the years. Each logo took elements from Superman's suits in the Golden Age and Silver Age, with some being ripped from more modern and Elseworld stories. A universal thing you can notice in most of these is the yellow outline on the logo, which I think makes the symbol stand out, and it's actually a really great addition. But I know you all noticed the black background on the logo as well, which is not used very much on Superman suits, but when it is included, it does help it stand out even more. They used the black because they felt it fit more with the grounded and darker tone of the film. However, eventually they decided to go for the more classic red and yellow. After deciding on how Superman's symbol would look, they began developing the actual suit. When you take a look at the early designs, you can tell that the artists had a lot of fun playing around with the look. The suit here actually does not look like a suit to begin with. It strangely looks like it's a part of his body, as you can see his muscles and tendons, as if the suit was modeled after his musculature. This becomes even more clear when you notice how there's no boundaries between his skin and the costume. It's almost as if someone painted Superman's suit onto a naked body. Other noticeable elements of this suit is how there's energy pulsating all over Superman's body. It almost implies that Superman's suit is a construct of pure energy that forms around his body as if he was a Green Lantern. In this concept, Superman is once again pulsating with energy. However, this time his emblem is what's glowing, as if his heat vision is generated from his chest. These colorful and unique Superman costumes are very cool and inventive. However, eventually the artists began to play around with something a lot more traditional. These new Superman suits now looked a lot closer to what we see in the final film. No longer did they appear to be a part of his skin. No, this time, the suits appeared like something you'd physically wear. One interesting element that's present through these early Superman suits is the addition of red underwear. Early on during Man of Steel's development, Snyder states that he had tried to figure out how to implement the red underwear into the suit and looked at hundreds of iterations of Superman's costume in order to figure out how he could make it work. However, in the end, he decided that it just did not fit with the universe he was crafting.
Red underwear, I probably looked at hundreds of versions with the underwear. I mean, I tried, honestly. I said, okay, well, let's see if we can make it work because it's Superman. But it's that fine line of reinventing him, but still seeing him in there.
Another iconic Superman costume element is the yellow insignia on his cape, which we can briefly see in this concept and a series of other concept art. However, in the end, this was ultimately not included in later iterations of the costume. In later suit concepts, we begin to see how the suit is now slowly beginning to resemble the one we see in the film. The colors are a lot more muted, the red underwear is now gone, and there's many chainmail engravings into the suit. Despite resembling the final suit more closely, there's still a bit of differences that differentiate it. Not only is the S drawn differently, but the background around the S is black instead of yellow. Another major difference with some of these suits is how large the cape is, as it fully envelops and almost covers Superman's whole body. Superman in this image does look a bit more imposing. There's also black suit variations of these costumes, which would have likely been used in the dream sequence from the film. Fun fact, this suit was actually created for the film during the early costume tests. And as you can see, it looks like an almost one-to-one replica with the same S logo and even the long cape that almost conceals his body. Now this suit was likely just a test suit meant to give a good idea on how Henry Cavill would look in costume, and they never intended for the suit to be used in the actual film. This suit would be altered several times to test out new capes, belt buckles, and logos. These changes would eventually result in this iteration of the suit. As you can see, it resembles the final suit design more closely. However, one major difference is the S symbol, as the costume designers decided not to include the yellow background.
So what we're looking at here is the Superman suit from the second camera test, and the notes we got back from that, we're going to make a few adjustments for our next camera test.
There were other pieces of Superman concept art, however, they don't stray too much from what we've already seen.
It seemed very interesting that this was kind of a feudal culture, a culture that was led by powerful families, that each of these families controlled Krypton.
In Man of Steel, there are many factions within Krypton, and every faction have their own designated symbol and a special attire that they wear, such as the Kryptonian Council, who wear golden gowns with large headwear. Another faction who have a unique symbol and an outfit is the Warrior Guild of Krypton, otherwise known as the Bodyguards and Soldiers. According to the lore of Krypton within the DCEU, Kryptonians were very much a traditionalist society that respected law, order, and nature. This would explain why a lot of Kryptonian imagery and weapons look very biological, appearing as if they're made of bones. This becomes clear when you see this concept. Artists experimented with Kryptonian armor that resembled an insect. The armor here looks like some kind of sci-fi beetle, and when we see the large bugs in the background, this insect influence becomes even more clear. This insect aesthetic for Kryptonian armor is present on other pieces of concept art, such as these ones. As you can see, the Kryptonian soldier is wearing large black armor has tubes poking from their mouths and large glass eyes at the top of their mask. If it's not clear enough, this armor is meant to resemble a fly and actually looks very creepy and unsettling. Later concepts of Kryptonian armor stray away from this insect influence by quite a bit. However, despite this, the Kryptonian armor is still very much inspired by nature. When you take a look at this concept, the armor is visibly more colorful. When it comes to a suit like this, the helmet is the most noticeable, as it appears like the skeleton of a dinosaur. Now, since Kryptonian armor is shared by a majority of its soldiers, this means that concept art for a Kryptonian soldier also classifies as concept art for General Zod. However, some of the concepts were designed specifically with General Zod in mind. This concept, for example, has General Zod look very imposing. His armor is incredibly large, and due to the distinct horrifying mask and the bronze colors placed on many parts of the suit, this is an armor that would catch anyone's attention instantly and definitely gives off the vibe that this person is of high authority. While these more unique and nature-inspired armor designs are very cool and inventive, the production team in the end decided to go a different direction and instead embrace something a bit more grounded when compared to the original design approach. These new Kryptonian suits were a lot more militaristic. Krypton also received a ton of concept art that gives us a better look at the city of Kandor, showing us its towering skyscrapers, tightly packed buildings, and neon-filled streets. We also have a good look at some animal life within Krypton as well. Unfortunately, we don't see Krypton much in the actual film and only see a small fragment of locales. As a result, these concept arts are the best look we have at what this planet looked like. It's sad that most of these concepts couldn't make it into the final film, but it's always nice to look back at the unused ideas and see the many directions this film could have went.